Good introduction as always. I am just going to try and share my screen for people so we can do a little presentation. Can everyone see that okay? Alan, can you see that?
I can see it, yeah. It might be quite good if someone can just pop in the chat like a yes, just so we're aware that you can see it as well.
Cool. Because I'm sharing my screen, Alan, I can't see any questions. So do you want to jump in if any specific questions come in that are of interest? I think I can't see the questions, or right now I can't. So
I'll keep an eye on them. Cool.
Okay. So yeah, thanks everyone. We decided to put a few webinars on just to try and keep everyone interested and try and maximize what is a pretty bad situation, but make the most of it, and try and help everyone out there to continue improving and stay in touch with the squash. I think that so we've got what we think are 5 really good webinars coming up, and we just wanted to start off with a bit more of a simple one. There's a risk that we might be kind of teaching you to suck eggs here, but I hope that there is a few new ideas. And literally what I'm going to run through in this session is just what I've done personally during this period to try and improve as a coach. It's something that I'm constantly trying to strive to always be better, and hopefully as I go through my process with you during this presentation, then that will give you some ideas, or at least kind of show you how much improvement I've still got to make as a coach. If nothing else, you can have a good laugh at me. So hopefully it'll be of some use. So the first thing to do, obviously, we asked you to kind of come prepared with a pen and paper. So just come up with one thing that you have done during this time so far that you've done to become a better coach. So if you want to have a think about that and put it into the chat function. Obviously, if there's any of these things that you don't want to do, I'm going to constantly keep on asking you questions and hope that you'll share them with us. If you're not comfortable doing that, that's absolutely fine. But the more kind of sharing that we can do, the more that we can learn off each other. I don't want it to just be you're coming here to learn off me. There's a lot of wise people on this chat and on this webinar, so hopefully if we can share as much as possible, then we'll get even more out of it. So have a little think about what you've done during this period, and then just type it in the chat. It'll be really interesting to see what you've come up with. I'll give you a little bit of time to do that.
Paul, just quickly, sorry, there was one quick comment there that someone's just seen the Scottish Squash logo rather than the screen. Can you maybe just unshare your screen and then share it again?
Yeah.
I think it's the Scottish Squash logo from my profile picture in Teams.
All right, okay. Cool. Okay. How's that?
Hopefully that works this time. So if that person just, I think it was John Charles who could only see the logo, so hopefully you can see the PowerPoint slide now.
What do we think? Is that all right?
I think so, yeah. Sorry, so can you see those comments, Paul, in the...
No, I can't. No, cool. You just shout them out.
So loads, brilliant so far. So things that have been... 2 seconds, let me get to the start. So just in terms of watching some squash, just general squash matches, I guess, coaching videos, somebody mentions, listening to podcasts, like specifically the ones that we've been putting out, which is great to know that they're getting some form of reach.
That's extra points for whoever that was.
Searching online coach education courses and taking part in online activities, so similar to this one, I guess. Some have been running weekly squash challenges for maybe club members or people that they coach. A lot of watching squash again, aiming to watch different players. Some are focusing on like the development of their own coaching business. Self-reflections coming up.
Yeah.
It's even coming into it, so develop like recruitment skills has come up. areas to improve for future planning, like using this time to aid for when we're back to some form of activity, I guess.
Yeah.
Reading some squash biographies, watching PSA matches with training partners, and analysing them. So, yeah, I think that's
okay. Great
fair
stuff.
list.
That's good. Pretty much everything that's in the presentation, so we can just leave it there, I think. But we won't. So if we just go on to, that's really encouraging that we've got some good stuff from people. So I'm going to split it up into some different sections of what I've done. And the first bit is review. Review has been something that I've done a lot over my whole career, and it stems off of what I think is a really important attribute for coaches and people, anyone really that's looking to get better, and that is vulnerability. Just kind of this vulnerability is a huge part of my journey, I feel, as a coach. And just to give you a bit of background on me, I'm obviously director of squash at Scottish Squash now, 33 years old, so pretty young to hold a position like this. I became the national coach when I was 28, so very young to have a position like that. But when I look back on it, I started coaching professionally when I was 21, coached quite a lot up until that point, just on the side, and then decided to really go into coaching myself and try and make something of it on a full-time basis, make a career out of it. And I've been both lucky in terms of the opportunities that I've sometimes found, sometimes created for myself. But I think the key part of my journey is just the way that I've gone about taking on these challenges. I think it's quite different to a lot of coaches that I've seen, because most coaches come off of a successful playing career and then they go into a coaching role with a lot of expectation. Whereas I was in a really good position because I was young. No one really had much expectation of what I was going to bring to the table. And that meant that I could kind of go in and play dumb. My philosophy and everything that I did was trying to grow and experience new things to prepare myself to be a good coach in the future. And that's kind of still what I'm trying to do now. But as I went through, I got given a lot of good opportunities. And if I just think about some of the key things that I've done in my career that kind of highlight how vulnerability has played a big part of it, I can remember probably 10 years ago now, it was Helsinki Europeans. I started off, my first job was in Ireland at Galway Club, and pretty quickly into it, I expressed an interest in helping out with some of the national squads and just doing it voluntarily. And it's not a huge program out there, so they were keen for the help. And I can remember just before the Europeans, this is when Simon Park was the national coach, and I was going over to help. And he phoned up the day before and said, "Oh, actually, I can't come along. I'm really ill. Can you run this session?" So I'm there as a 22-year-old, there being asked to coach, like Derek Ryan, who was former top 5 in the world. Madeline Perry was there. There was all these like professional players that were really established, really experienced, much older than me, and I was going in to coach them there in this national squad right before the Europeans. I was pretty nervous about it, and I was up all night thinking, trying to plan the perfect session. And the way that I ended up approaching it was just, I'm going to learn as much out of this weekend as they were. Let's just do a few exercises and really try and interact with them as much as I could and figure out what they wanted. So all the way through, I was asking them what would be good to do next. What sort of session do you want to do this afternoon? What sort of exercise should we do next? And because of the situation that we were in and my age, they were really good with me and gave me good ideas as to what to do next. And as a result of it, I enjoyed the session, and they gave me really good feedback. And I think that right from the very start, the temptation would have been to go in there and try and stamp my authority, and I would have just been kind of flat-faced back, they probably wouldn't have listened to me at all. So I was really, really pleased and encouraged by the fact that by going in there and showing a bit of vulnerability, not trying to be this dictator in an environment that I clearly wasn't experienced enough to be in, it really made a massive difference to the way that I was perceived. And as a result of that, I got loads more opportunities with it, and to the point that I was kind of leading the Irish team in the final of the Europeans only 2 years later. So I think that there's a really, my story, I feel, kind of showcases to coaches that you don't have to be this perfect person, or this perfect coach that goes in with all the answers. Much of the opportunities that I've had and the progress that I've made has been through learning from others and going in there without all the answers and trying to find ways to work together with any players that I'm working with to get to the point that we all wanted to be. And it's been much better received by doing that than I've seen other coaches go in that are perhaps more experienced but haven't taken the time to really understand what the players need themselves. So because of that, I'm a real advocate of doing self-analysis. So we've got 6 areas here, and these are the areas that we are looking to really try and categorize coaches in, not categorize, the different categories that we are using to help coaches to develop. So squash knowledge, facilitating learning, developing the player, the coaching process that you use, your own self-awareness as a coach, and your coaching craft, which is kind of your philosophy, everything that goes alongside that, the way that you coach. So as a first little activity, I just want you to look at these 6 areas and write down, give yourself a score out of 10 for how you think you fare in these areas. So how good are you on a scale of 1 to 10 with your squash knowledge? How good are you on a scale of 1 to 10 for facilitating learning in your sessions and with your pupils? How good are you at developing the player? And just go through all 6 and quickly write them down. Give yourself a score. If anyone's brave enough to put it in the chat, they can, but you don't have to. I wasn't expecting you to do that right now, but I think it's a really good, just start a broad view of where do you think you're at with your coaching. I'll give you 1 minute, so 30 seconds, just a real quick one of thinking. You don't need to go into any real detail with this. Just off the top of your head, what score would you give yourself? Okay, so this is an exercise that I do pretty regularly, and I've done it during this period that we've been off. So I'm gonna open up myself completely and give you my own scores here in the areas that we tend to work off from a coaching point of view. So we've got the 6 areas on the left-hand side, and then we also break them down into what it actually means. So if we just use squash knowledge as the easy one that everyone should understand, then our squash knowledge fits into technical stuff, tactical stuff, physical stuff, psychological stuff, and behavioral stuff. And all of these, I split them up, so I give myself a score within all of those, and that encompasses my squash knowledge. And then we do it for all the different areas, as you can see. So real simple, I give myself a score. We actually do it 0 to 9, but telling you to do it out of 10 was easier for this situation. But just to give you an idea of what I do, I go through it, I give myself a score that I feel like I'm performing in, and then a reason why that is. So, If we look at technical, I give myself an 8 because I'm happy with my knowledge in this area. I've spent a lot of time studying it and have an opportunity to work with a variety of players. So I do that and really dig deep. This is quite a long process that I do. I take a lot of time, spend a lot of time doing it. But I get a lot of value out of it, and it's a real clear indication of the areas that I think I need to work on. And then also just understanding your strengths as a coach is a really important thing as well. I don't think anyone will be expected to be 10 out of 10 in every single one of these areas. So it's just a good process to go through, and at the end of this, we're happy to release this as a model for anyone that wants to do it themselves in a bit more detail. I also seek feedback from other people. So I have quite a few people that I go to for support to try and ensure that I'm doing the best I can. But one of the key things that I do, which is quite a difficult process to go through, but also really, really insightful, is asking the players that I work with to do this as well for me. So they are judging me in the areas that in those same areas, so they're giving me a score on how good they think I am in these different areas. So these are the real life results. I didn't amend them at all. Of the players that I work with. So they've come back and given me scores. As you can see, there's some interesting results. There's some clear areas that I need to try and make some improvements with. There's some areas that I'm quite happy with. And one of the key things is there's so much variety in the scores. So in some areas I'm getting a 4, in some areas I'm getting from some players, and then from other players in the same area I'm getting a 9. So it really highlights what the expectation levels are of the players as well, and what they, a lot of the time, what they value. And a big indicator for this is that how different people need different things in the same area. So what would be a really good relationship, how I go about creating a really good relationship for some athletes works brilliantly, but trying that same method with a different athlete has a completely different result and a negative result. So I just wanted to show you that. Don't go into too much detail with it, but it's really, while it's difficult, and this is why I brought up vulnerability at the very beginning, like this it's a bitter pill to swallow, and you see some of these scores coming in, and those reds down the bottom are like a dagger to the heart. But at the end of the day, it's valuable information to try and help you to become a better coach, which is what we're actually looking to do. And I'm sure every single person that's on this webinar is looking to do that. So my challenge to you right now, or my question, is who could you be asking for feedback from? I'm in quite a lucky position because obviously I'm working with professional players who have a good understanding of the game and quite have experience, so they know what good coaching looks like and what they need from a coach. Some of you might be working with young kids who you probably wouldn't get much positive response from, or wouldn't get anything that you could use. But is there someone out there or some group of people that you think you could go to and seek some feedback from that you don't already have? And I want you to write it down. Hopefully that'll hold yourself accountable to actually doing it. I'll just give you 30 seconds for this one. It's really interesting as we look at this feedback from the players. One of the key things is not getting bogged down in what the scores are, but the real question is, why would they have given you these scores? And as long as you can justify what the scores generally are, then you're in a good place. When you feel like you've been working really hard to develop the person, and then you come back with 2s, then that's when you really need to take a good hard look at what you're doing and how you might need to change it. If we just look at some of the technical and tactical ones at the top, Most of them are green, but the ones that are amber, I absolutely know exactly why they're amber. I mean, it's because that person who has provided the scores, technically and tactically, they're absolutely spot on. So we do very little work in those areas, and we focus more on the other areas which are green. But the perception of the player is obviously that because we don't do much work in the technical and tactical area, then it's obviously because I'm not as confident doing it. So it's a really good thing to do this and see what comes back from your players to try and get a better idea of their interpretation of you and your style of coaching and why you're making the decisions that you are. There's some really good conversations that can come off of the back of it. Okay, moving on. One of the other key things that we do is we have targets. So we get forced into it from Sport Scotland, and these were the 5 targets that we had for this season just gone, and obviously achieved 3 of them and didn't achieve 2 of them. But we really try and stretch ourselves with the targets that we give to Sport Scotland. But whatever level you're coaching at, it is good to have targets. Like, you need a purpose to be working towards, and you need to have something that you can assess at the end of the season to say, yeah, I've done a good job here. I find a lot of coaches that fall out of love with their job are the ones that are just doing the same thing year on year, week by week, maybe even day by day, without a longer term goal in mind of what they're actually trying to do. You should always be striving to be better, striving to achieve something. And just setting targets might just be 1 for the season. It might be, I wouldn't go any more than 5 if I was being honest. But the having some targets that you're going to hold yourself accountable to, and then be able to go through and have a good review about why you did well or why you didn't do so well during a season is a really good way of doing things. And then finally, we have peer support in this section, like review and trying to utilize the people around you to try and give you some honest feedback and to help you is a real important thing that I've been lucky enough to have pretty much all of my coaching career. But if you don't organically have them, going and finding them is something really important. I've started off right from the very start with my dad, who was a coach. But I was lucky that pretty early on when I was working in Ireland, Hadrian Stiff came on board, and he's been a real close friend who supported me over the years ever since. And we've remained close, and kind of we support each other now, I guess, is the way that it's evolved into the relationship. But I have got the senior performance coaches in Scotland who I did exactly the same exercise with to ask them, how do you think I'm doing as a coach? And I'll do the same thing for them as well. I have coaches from different sports that I go to and ask for support from. So there's lots of different people that I now have put around me to try and help me and challenge me to continue to be a good coach. So just want to pause here again and ask you, like, what peer support do you have around you? Like, have you organically got someone there that's helping you, or do you need to go out and find someone that's going to be that support team for you? And if you need to go and find someone, who could it be? And just write it down. Who would be a good person for you to go and seek something from to try and help you as a coach that you can get to know and really try and it's just like, it's the role that you're playing with the players that you coach. Who's doing that for you? You're not always going to have a clear picture of what's actually happening. And until you try and go and get it and get some external information from other people, then you're just going to be head in the sand type idea and just going about your daily business, which isn't the best situation for the athletes that you're working with, and it really isn't the best thing for you to be continuing your development as a coach. So who could that person be for you? So this is the end of the review section. I was, rather than me just droning on and on and on, I figured that we should do some questions if there was any at the end of each section. So if anyone has any questions on any of that review stuff, do you want to put it in, and then maybe Alan, you can shout them out?
Yeah, cool. We've had nothing since before you've asked for them, so let's see if anyone wants to take an opportunity.
They might all be shy. Are still astounded at how bad of a coach the national coach is after I've seen that feedback.
So more something around, I guess, what you're presenting, and are we able to share like a PDF of the feedback model? I don't know, are we planning to share this presentation?
Yeah, we can. So just I should have said it at the beginning, actually, like what we want to do with these webinars is it's an introduction to a topic and a way that you could be working, or something that you could be doing to develop as a coach. And we'll provide a bit of a snapshot of all the different areas. And then anyone that's interested in diving deeper into this, then we'll create a few subgroups and a few sub-workshops and things like that to really try and support everyone through it. So if anyone feels like they really want to delve down deep into some reviewing of their current practice, then we'll perhaps get a little group together and support you through it, as opposed to just saying, here's a sheet of paper, like crack on. Like anyone that really wants to do that, we'll try and put something in place to help you to do it effectively and get the most out of it. Any questions coming out?
So yeah, there's something there from Stuart, and Stuart, feel free to jump in the microphone if it's easier to add a little bit more to it. So he's talking around, so when you spoke about like keeping things fresh, and have you at any point, I guess, in your coaching of like stagnation, and the process that you took in order to, I guess, move on from that or correct that?
I mean, yeah, absolutely, especially for those people that are in the same job for quite a long time. It does become an issue that you just end up doing the same things and you don't even know it. I think the thing that I've tried to do all the way through is look to in as many different ways as possible at what other people are doing around me. So those targets really keep you focused, because if you're measuring yourself and your performance against what your expectation levels are, then you should be constantly looking to evolve what you're doing and challenge yourself in new ways to become a better coach, and therefore produce better players and achieve bigger targets. Alongside that, it's if you've delved down deep into the sport and really challenge yourself with what you're doing, then you're always going to be looking for examples of better practice and where you can learn something new from. So that is something that trying to bring new ideas back into your own program as much as possible. And it doesn't matter whether they're good ideas or bad ideas either. There's been plenty of things that I've brought in to have a go at over the years just to mix things up and keep them fresh, and then realized that is absolutely terrible. Why am I even trying to do this? But I would much rather that than just continue doing the same thing over and over again. Hopefully that makes sense.
Cool. And then another point around, so one from Jim on any plans like around refresher courses to help coaches update or help coaches further develop.
I mean, we could do if that is something that coaches are wanting, but I think one thing that what we're trying to really encourage here is that coaches seek these opportunities out for themselves. Like there's lots of people in all the different environments, no matter where you are. I'm sure there's really good examples of good practice. There's people that you will be sure that you can learn something new from or try something new. And what we want to do is create a system where people can just identify what they need and then go and find it for themselves, or be supported from us to go and find it for themselves. If we start doing it for you, then it becomes quite generic. So then we would have to come up with topics and say, oh, we think that somebody wants to become better at the technical side of things. Whereas actually, you could be a coach out there that's pretty happy with your technical knowledge. And what you really want to do is try and work on how can you develop the person a little bit better. So what we would like to do is create a culture that has coaches that are continuously seeking out learning opportunities for themselves. So the lack of stuff that Scottish Squash do wouldn't have any impact on you continuing to develop as a coach. But that's what we see and what we'd like to create. But obviously we know it's not that easy. But I think with the way that I am, and certainly the way that Allan is, we can help coaches that are aspiring to do that and help them with linking them up in the relevant areas. Definitely.
It's also a good one as well, Paul. Like we touched on this week, and we're chatting with some other sports around like cross, sport engagement and learning, actually what you can learn from maybe coaches that aren't directly, involved in squash. I don't know your views on that, or if we can share anything on that, but certainly another opportunity to learn in different ways or learn different areas.
Yeah, you've just taken a whole section out of.
No.
That's fine.
And then another one, so from Keith around peer support. So like he feels, your point around peer support implies like the potential of close association with somebody or another coach. That this could be difficult or more difficult for clubs that maybe lie in remote areas. And so any suggestions how to link with that or how to tackle that challenge?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one way of doing it, to have someone that's in close proximity, but two of my mentors, as you would say, or people that I use as support, have never ever seen me coach, never seen anyone ever play squash before. Like the areas that I go to them to work on are not, well, they're to do with developing squash players, but they're nothing to do with the actual squash court. I go to someone to help me with my management skills, and I go to someone to help me with my communication skills. And one of those things needs to be in the squash court. The people that I have gone to are purposefully not squash people, so they don't have any idea about the game or trying to tell me in any squash context. The work there is for me to do it. And I think anyone that gets to know a coach as a person will then help them to really try and break down their practice. Like even something simple as my wife is a primary school teacher, and some of the problems that I go home with on a day, she can solve them just because she's like, well, I had this with this 5-year-old and this is how I solved it. And it then becomes really relatable if you put yourself in the frame of mind that you can at the end of the day, we are teachers as coaches, and there's lots of different expertise that need to be in place to do that effectively. It isn't just all about the squash side of things. Obviously, I do have people I go to for squash specific stuff, but there's lots of information. Like that's more information, and information is so readily available on the internet now that those types of things aren't the things that I'm as worried about anymore. And I mean, whether that answers your question or not, I'm not sure, but it's certainly something that we can help you with if you would like some peer support, but you feel like there isn't anyone around you, then we can have a look at that and see what we might be able to do for sure.
Cool. I think that's us in terms
of to move on.
Questions in that section. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, great. So one of the key things, as you could see from some of the feedback, coach-athlete relationships is something that I work really hard on, and probably an area definitely an area that I need to keep working hard on, especially the variety of. So I've got a variety of ages with the people that I work with, and men and women, boys and girls. So each one of those individual athletes requires something different from me as their coach, and wants something different as well. So the coach-athlete relationship is something that I work really hard on, and it takes a lot of work to get right. But if you do get it right, then it makes a huge difference in your ability to influence the person that you're working with. So I just wanted to start off with a couple of, there's lots of information on this out there on the internet. I'm certainly not an expert, so I didn't want to try and tell you what to do with this. I think the key message with the coach-athlete relationship stuff is that it takes work, and you should be the one driving that, as long as the athlete is wanting to invest in the relationship with you. So there's loads of little posters and infographics and things that you can do to go and find out extra information about what is an effective coach-athlete relationship. And one thing that I've found, which is really good, is a website called Tandem. And it's a UK sport are actually giving away free reports. As a coach, you can sign up to it and get 10 free reports to use with your athletes. So I would definitely do that, or if not, it's £15 a report. So you could give that a go if you don't have that many athletes to work with. And it's a woman who seems to be an expert in it, Dr. Sophia Jowett. She's at Loughborough University, and she's developed this. It's just a little survey that you do as the coach and the athlete does, and then it pushes out a document that gives you kind of what the strengths and weaknesses of the coach-athlete relationship are, and then you can take a look at it. It provides a bit of feedback for you and some ideas of where you might want to put some extra bit of work in to really try and enhance that coach-athlete relationship as much as possible. So this is a quick section, but I wanted to make sure that I touched on it, because it's this opportunity here. It's a massive opportunity right now, because we're not getting bogged down by the squash side of things. We're not getting bogged down by results, or for someone like me who coaches professionals, like, they're actually around. They're not traveling all over the world really busy. They're in one place and they've got time on their hands. So the ways that I use these sort of tools to try and enhance it and to bring it to life a little bit, and different methods. But the best way of improving a coach-athlete relationship is talking, that communication piece. And I don't know about any other coaches out there, but I've spoken to all the players that I work with far more during this period than I would have before, and I was pretty much seeing them every day. But they're just constantly keeping me updated with every session that they're doing. Some players like a daily check-in phone call, some players like a weekly phone call, some players never want to speak to me, but they'll keep in touch with text. And it's such a valuable opportunity here to do this and to start having some Zoom calls and to start actually getting down into some nitty-gritty stuff in terms of your relationship and who they are as people. That you will, if you put the work into the athletes that you're working with now, the result off of the back of this, it will be huge. And it's a perfect opportunity to just show athletes how much you care. It would be really easy during this period to just not really have much interaction with them and just say, oh, I'll see you again when court's open. But then that really creates the situation where it's all about the squash, and an effective coach-athlete relationship isn't just all about the squash. So the more that you can do to really support them through what is obviously, it's a tricky time for everyone, but it'll definitely be a tricky time for them. They'll be missing what they're passionate about, the sport that they love, and having you, it was really good to hear some of the different things that you've been doing, the weekly challenges and stuff like that you've already thought of. But just organizing a phone call and just getting to know the person a little bit better and seeing how they're feeling and trying to support them through it would definitely be time well spent in terms of your developing this relationship into the future. So a little question for you. What setting is there that you could be supporting your players and enhancing your relationship with them? So this isn't just a question for now, but what is there in in the timetable of a squash athlete, that you can make sure that you are there for them and support them during a difficult time with their squash. Don't know whether I've said that question very good or not, but
while you've thrown out that question, Paul, there's another one come in, I guess, which focuses on the coach-athlete, the relationship. So maybe a good time to pick it up when you start again. So Jesse's asking around any suggestions or experience, I guess, how to create a unique relationship with players when most of the coaching that you're delivering could be in group situations, rather than maybe that individual, lessons where you can maybe begin to learn and get to know that person as an individual.
I mean, it is more difficult in group situations, but what I've found as a coach, and I mean, this probably won't answer, well, this won't answer the question, but it's a good tip for now, is group situations are brilliant to try and kind of get follow-on individual work. So you start off by coaching most people in groups, and then if you're really paying attention throughout that group session, you can have individual conversations and feedback to them at the end of the session. And then that might be the little thing that sparks them off into thinking, oh, maybe I should get a one-to-one session to work on my backhand drop shot because I was really struggling with it in that group session or something like that. And I think that it comes down to just being like a caring and considerate person. Like if you're in a group session with a group of athletes, however big that is, try and have a little individual conversation with each one of them, whether that's at the end, the beginning of the session, just say, how are you getting on today? What have you done since the last session? Blah, blah, blah. Or giving yourself a bit of time at the end to just say, what did you think of that session? Here's some feedback for you. Have a work on this. What's coming up? All those little conversations that happen. And if you can then remember those conversations and keep following up with them. So they would say, oh yeah, I've got a competition this weekend. I'm a bit worried about it, blah, blah, blah. And then you maybe drop them a message to say, oh, good luck this weekend. Or after the post event, how did it go this weekend? Did you enjoy it? Whatever it might be. Or even just at the beginning of the next session, like, oh, how did you get on at the weekend? Did you enjoy it? All those little things of just getting to know the people, even though they're within a group, it doesn't take a lot of time and effort, but it makes a huge impact on the players that you're working with. I think as soon as you start just treating them all as one mass group, and with like it needs to be a group of individuals, and you need to treat them like that, and then as a result of it, that'll be, some people will just be there for the squash and they're not interested in you, and that's fine. But there will be some people that are really interested in taking it further, forming a stronger bond with you as a coach. And then they're the people that you're really going to build a business around. And they're going to be the ones that will definitely improve more because you'll have created the buy-in that you're looking for to help them improve, and they'll be hanging on your every word as a result of it. So that'll be one way I would do it. Has everyone put in answers to that question? This is one that I want you all to put in something for.
Into this chat.
Yeah.
We've got a note, sorry, can you just remind, I guess, people of what the initial question was, if you can,
yeah,
if you can remember.
I knew it didn't come across very well. So with the theory that we're trying to enhance the coach-athlete relationship, what is it like? What could you do as a coach to try and show extra support to the players that you're working with?
So cool. So Jim's popped in some thoughts on this one, and he's gone down the route of like advising players to work on maybe mental rehearsal, providing some with fitness programs to be able to maintain like fitness levels as well, which links to the game. So it's some early thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully the second time around was a bit more clear and concise.
So then someone's or Martin's talking around, given the current situation, more regular online communication with the athletes, which is maybe a little bit different during a typical week of when we're not faced with the current situation.
Yeah. Okay.
So Jason's speaking around being able to send links to videos that shows like coaching points in action that they're maybe working on. Keith speaks about avoiding comparisons with other players, which is an interesting one. Joe has been sharing work that he's doing, so in terms of like maybe circuits or technical work that he's been doing indoors during the lockdown period, encouraging some athletes to carry out maybe sort of the same routine, letting them know whether they're enjoying it, whether they're struggling with elements of it.
Cool. Okay. I mean, they're all good ideas, and that's definitely some things that you could do to keep this coach-athlete relationship going. The couple of things that I had, well, the main thing that I have and the main thing that I've used over my career has been really making an effort to go to events that my players are playing in. I feel like obviously like going to events, it's a big time commitment, and I totally understand that. But it's when you see your athlete at their most vulnerable, and it's when they are like the training that you do is working towards helping them to compete. And that's whether you're working with a professional player or a junior. And they want to be able to show that the work that they do through the week with you as their coach is going to help them to improve when it comes to competing. So to be there and support them through that, and to see them at their most vulnerable, to support them through their most vulnerable, to go through the highs and lows with them as a person and as a player, that has probably been the one thing that I believe has helped me to create a much stronger coach-athlete relationship, no matter what level I'm working at. Obviously, you don't do it you do it for free, so it's a tough one to it's potentially a tough one to justify for you. But if you are serious about forming strong relationships with the players that you work with and trying to create a culture and create a system that really encourages players to you want to develop the whole person and the whole squash player. You want to really be able to have an impact on them. That is when you can do it the most. And if anyone's traveled away with teams, then you'll see you learn so much more about a squash player in a weekend away as a representative team than you ever would just in your weekly sessions that you run at a club. So that's my top tip on that one.
There are a couple more just come in there, Paul. So Derek speaks about off-court interaction, so understanding their mentality as a person, which then helps to understand what drives their mentality when they're on the court.
Yeah.
So a point around that. Jesse Mills speaks around keeping up to date with their schedule, so knowing maybe when they're playing, whether that's like tournaments or leagues, as you spoke about, and then making a point of following up with them after to encourage reflection.
Yeah.
Was another point. Julia likes the idea around going to events. She's heard and seen how players potentially respond to that.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, let's move on. So there's a squash section, as I'd hope you'd expect. And this is a great opportunity to really delve down deep into your squash knowledge and develop it as much as you can. The key areas that I've kind of highlighted here are the technical, the tactical, really focusing in on environments and how do you create a good environment to help your players to develop. Psychology, there's loads of stuff on psychology around at the moment that you can really delve down deep into if that's an area that you think is important or an area that you want to develop. Session design, a lot of that comes just from self-reflection, but you can also have these conversations with other coaches. How do you work on this? How do you design sessions, blah, blah, blah. Training design, especially stuff like periodization, like it takes a lot of time and effort to really focus in on and get to the detail that's required for it. But now's a perfect time to really try and think about that and create a few templates that would make this work much, much easier in the future. And then the bit at the bottom, what it takes to win, is a model that we use to really try and ensure that we are running sessions and designing doing everything that we can to make sure that we are producing the best possible squash players, and all of those technical, tactical, physical, mental, physical, mental, and emotional things that we work on all go into making sure into that puzzle to try and pop out the best squash player possible. So there's lots of different things that you can go into the squash side of things, and we will do a future workshop really focusing in on the squash specific stuff. So I'm not going to go into that. I've already talked a lot. But when it comes to this stuff, there's two methods. There's two ways to do it. Obviously, you want to be doing it on your own players and really trying to do some analysis and understand where the players that you currently work with are at, what areas they need to improve, planning for the future with them. So that's really important to do. But it's also a great opportunity to do it on the competition and on the world's best players. A really important aspect of being a coach is that you understand where you want your players to get to, and you understand the game that you want them to be playing in the future. So to really understand what's happening at the top of the game, it's evolving all the time. It's a really interesting time at the moment with the Egyptians dominating, but then everyone else trying to bridge that gap. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the squash world right now, and if you want to be at the forefront of that, then it's a great opportunity to take this time to delve down deep into it and gather as much knowledge as you possibly can on this. Any questions on the squash specific side of things for anyone? One of the questions that I wanted to pose was kind of, when you are doing any analysis of a squash player, what are you looking at? Maybe just fire a few things in the chat. So as you've been, I'm sure there's quite a few people said that they've been watching a lot of squash. Like, what have you seen? What do you look for when you watch squash? Or you can watch squash for enjoyment, which I'm sure all of us do, but that isn't going to help you to be a better coach. There needs to be something that you're getting out from it and an objective for you spending that time watching squash. So what are some of the key things that you've got out of the work that you've done to increase your squash knowledge?
So movement's coming up now. So I guess watching specifically the movement when watching matches, watching squash.
Yeah.
This one's quite quiet though. We're not getting as much engagement on this point.
No.
Someone's speaking about the tactics or strategy of the game. Positioning and readiness. So having the largest available window to hit the best shot. Anticipation and positioning. So positioning again. Body language and technique.
Yeah, body language is a good one. That's definitely something that you wouldn't be, if you're just watching for enjoyment, you wouldn't really be noticing much about body language. But if you really watch a match specifically to look at the psychological side of the game, and body language will come up a lot.
Common shot patterns of the certain players that you're watching, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Different type of length with follow-up shots and follow-up movements.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Hopefully there's some things that have been put in the chat there that are good ideas for you, things that you might not have thought about. For me, I've been doing a lot of work on kind of winners and errors for the players that I work with. Where are they? What shots are they hitting from what areas? And are they winners? Are they errors? I'm we've been trying to do a lot of work also on where are you in relation to your opponent when you're striking the ball? So are you in front of them? Are you level with them? Or are you behind your opponent? And trying to gauge a bit of a percentage around that. There's been some really useful stuff, because obviously as coaches, one of our key phrases is whoever controls the middle usually wins the match. So it's been interesting to see how much time on the middle are our players actually spending. And we've also done quite a lot of stuff on rally length. We've had two of our female players who said that they prided themselves on being really physical on court, and then when we actually watched their matches back and did the data analysis, we found that one rally was lasting over 18 seconds, and the rest of the time the rallies were under 18 seconds, mostly in single figures. So you can't really call yourself a physical player if your rallies aren't lasting more than 10 seconds. So there's just little things that you can look for that generally as a coach, like we rely on coach's eye a lot, and so we should, because most of the time it's right. But you also want to test out that theory, and this is a good opportunity to do it. So being able to dive deep into some squash and understand what you're looking for and get some tangible data that you can use to back up your theories is a really useful thing to do right now. Okay, let's move on. So obviously increasing knowledge. This is something that I've kind of done my whole career. I love squash, and but more so now, I think I love the challenge of developing these squash players, especially the ones that I know are complex beings, and there's so much more that goes into developing them and getting the most out of them than you would know and you would learn on a squash court. So trying to expand my horizons and increase my knowledge as much as possible in all of the relevant areas is a key aspect to me being successful in my role. So knowledge is the key to success, certainly for me. So some of the things that I use to try and get my knowledge and try and get new ideas, I have an Audible subscription. My current book is The Art of Creative Thinking, which is a really good one. As I'm doing this one, it would be really good if you guys can put in any recommendations that you have. So do you have any book recommendations or podcast recommendations or anything like that? These are just mine, but if you guys have any, then that would be great, and just put them on the chat. It'd be really interesting. So in terms of the things that I've been doing in this period, I've got my book, The Art of Creative Thinking. Twitter for me is an unbelievable platform for getting knowledge and getting new ideas. My whole feed is pretty much just based around coaching, business, leadership, all those types of things that pop out articles and videos all over the place to really get me thinking and to challenge my thoughts and to send me down rabbit holes that I never knew existed to increase my knowledge base, which is great. I'm signed up to a website called Coursera, which is a free, some like short courses that universities put out there. Signed up to an introduction to self-determination theory that I've been working through. They just do little lectures and lectures and then a bit of follow-on work that you do just to try and enhance your knowledge. And there's loads of websites like that, but that's one that I've been using and I found it really good. Webinars have exploded over this last little period of time. I've signed up to quite a lot. Obviously, you guys are on one currently, so that's great. And if any of you have seen or listened to any really good webinars, then fire them in the chat. That would be great. And obviously podcasts. I think more and more people are getting into podcasts. There's obviously a really good one called the Scottish Squash Podcast, which I would definitely recommend. But I've really got into the School of Greatness lately. There's also, I'll get my phone out and check my list. The High Performance Podcast is a new one that Damien Hughes is doing, which is really good. Finding Mastery, I really like that one. And the Talent Equation Podcast, they would probably be my top top few podcasts that I listen to most of the time. But again, if any of you have any, just chuck them on the chat, because the more that we get on there, the better. That's all on the knowledge section. So I mean, I guess the key bit to it is that thinking outside the box, if you will, thinking outside the squash court. There's so many ways and so much resource out there now to try and improve your knowledge base. And it shouldn't all be about squash, especially if you're aspiring to coach at a high level. Again, coaching players that are, if you're coaching players that are aspiring to be at a top level, or you want to coach players at the top level in the future, then a broad knowledge base is absolutely crucial, because the better they get, the less it becomes about squash and the more it becomes about everything else. Take my word for that. So it's important that you have got the skill set to be able to deal with that. I'll just push on. The other side, thinking outside the box, came to it too quickly. But this, someone mentioned it before, and this is something that I really try and do. And it's looking outside of the sport to get inspiration and to get new ideas. So one of the Bjarg Ingolson is an architect who I think is a great architect. He runs Big Group, and some of the buildings that he's produced are unbelievable. I'm not massively into architecture, but I can totally appreciate what he's done. And there's loads of stuff out there on him and just the way he goes about things, learning about different people's philosophies, learning about the way that they solve problems and the way that they see problems. They massively help you when you come to actually trying to become a better coach and solve problems in different ways. Right? And another good one is I listened to a podcast from Eddie Jones the other day, and that was great. And whether it's thinking outside the box from a different looking at a different sport or looking at different industries, even Netflix has got loads of good stuff in there now, and I feel like there's opportunities to learn something from anyone out there in any industry that we can, because at the end of the day, it's about interacting with people, what we're trying to do. And if we can understand the person a bit better and understand how to deliver the message that we're trying to deliver a bit clearer, then we are certainly gonna be more impactful as a squash coach. So I think a lot of people get focused in on the technical, tactical, physical, and as long as they're trying to solve those problems, then they think they're doing a good job. But I would say the thing that's got me ahead in my career has been looking outside of that sort of stuff and trusting that my knowledge will increase as I spend more time on the squash court and watch more squash, and using my spare time or my time to develop that I dedicate to developing is looking at other areas. On the home stretch now, so the other thing that I need to make sure that I take my own advice on this, but this is an unbelievable opportunity that who knows when we'll ever get again, to just take a bit of a breath. Like in my job, it's fairly full on. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of travel. There's a lot of people wanting you at all hours of the day. And you just get used to that and just keep on going. So this has been a real challenge for me to just try and take a step back and not be 100 miles an hour all day long. And certainly haven't managed to do it yet, but I'm getting closer to it. But just relaxing, you want to take this time as an opportunity to develop, but also don't end up burning yourself out, so that when we do get the green light to go back into squash clubs and back into training and coaching, that we end up just being totally over it because we've done so much in this time. This is a great opportunity to just refresh the batteries and come back to things completely enthused and ready to tackle it and be an even better coach than you were before. As well as your work-life balance. So again, I'm definitely not the authority on this stuff, but I know it's important even if I don't live it. but getting a good work-life balance and avoiding burnout. I think one of the key things that I want to just highlight here is trying to figure out what works for you. Like, I love my job and I want to do it as much as possible, but I do recognize when it's getting too much, and I make sure that I've got a good yoga practice and a good yoga class that I can go to. Getting on the beers also helps as well, but just making sure that you plan in when it is that you're going to do things that kind of rebalance yourself and tip it in to the right level. So that thing that I'm trying to do during this period is figure out what can I do to try and relax, and figure out what can I do to just take my mind off squash, because it's always on squash, and I'm sure having a baby very soon will do that for me. But I recognize a lot that I need to do exercise in order to take my mind off things, that I need to do yoga to take my mind off things, and that I need to have something else in my life to really focus in on. And so the question for you all here that I want you to write down an answer to is, what do you do to switch off? What do you do to rebalance yourself? Because squash is a passion thing for most of us. So what is there? What do you have in your life that can help you to switch off from it? And the time that you have where you're not thinking at a million miles an hour is probably the time that you end up having your best ideas. It's definitely when I'm doing my meditation at the end of a yoga practice. That's generally when I have to pause it and jump up and write something down, because I've just had the best idea ever, and I've been trying to solve a problem for weeks, and then suddenly I stop thinking about it and the answer just appears. So write that down for yourself, put it in the chat if you're comfortable doing that, because some ideas might be really, really good for people. And okay, last one. All of this stuff is around trying to be clear on what you want to do and what you're trying to achieve as a coach. So purpose is the ultimate fuel for our journey through life. When we drive with purpose, we don't get tired or bored, and our engines don't burn out. I think that is something that a lot of the feedback that I get from players and fellow coaches is like, you're going to burn yourself out. And I just don't feel it ever, because I'm so purposeful in what I'm doing. I'm so I'm passionate about it, but that isn't the thing that drives me. It's the purpose that I have. I know why I'm doing everything that I'm doing and what I'm trying to achieve from it. And that is the thing that helps me just keep going and keep going and keep going. As soon as I get asked to do things that I don't see the reason for and that I don't see the purpose, I'm bored with it and I just find a way not to do it. So I make sure that I surround myself with things and only tackle things that I can see the purpose of and have purpose with. And hopefully a lot of this stuff, and if you go through this type of process, it will help you create a bit of purpose into what you're trying to achieve as a coach, how you need to go about doing it, what you can do to get better, and that will help you drive towards whatever it is that you want to achieve at the end. So, final thing, write in the chat one thing that you are now going to do to become a better squash coach. We got anything coming through yet, Alan?
Sorry, I forgot my mic was muted. So yeah, there's a few coming in. So someone, Martin's just speaking about just going out and seeking feedback. I think again, feedback. So feedback's common. Asking for feedback from peers.
Oh well, at least that's the one that I waffled to the most. So looks like it's hit there.
Joe added feedback as well, but really insightful to see the process that you've gone through, Paul.
Okay, great. Just keep on putting your things in there, because that'll be really interesting. Hopefully, if anyone's stuck on it, then some of the ideas that you guys come up with might be really helpful for them too, and for me. So just as a final thing, like I mentioned, we want this just to be the start of it. I think my criticism with a lot of webinars is they throw a lot of information at you and then just say, right, see you later. Which is good if you don't have a connection to the people that you're delivering to. But obviously we do, and we're committed to trying to make Scottish squash as good as it can possibly be. And in order to do that, we need really good, positive coaches out there that are supportive of what we're trying to do, and also they are clear on what they're trying to do and how that fits into the big picture. So one of the key things that we want is to be able to continue supporting you and helping you from now on. So a few ideas that I have would be kind of helping with coach reviews and seeking feedback and things like that, creating these peer-to-peer opportunities, facilitating your coach-athlete conversations, having a knowledge sharing forum. So just whenever people find things that they find interesting, or they can share it with other coaches around, really helping coaches to develop their personal development plan. And if nothing else, one of the key things that I really like in the setup that I've created for myself is that you have someone to be accountable to. So I'll go to one of my mentors and we'll have a conversation, and it might be that my communication skills really isn't good, and because of that, it's negatively affecting a relationship with someone. So they'll say, well, okay, you've now identified that, you need to go and have that conversation with them to try and resurrect that problem. And then they'll be there in a few days' time saying, have you had the conversation yet? When you're having the conversation, because it's very easy off of the back of these things just to be like, oh yeah, that was good, I'm not going to think about that ever again. So we can be that person for you if you need one, to just be like, okay, well, you said that you were going to seek some feedback from one of your players. Have you done it yet? Can we see what did you learn from it? Because I think, like came up, it can be quite a lonely world as a squash coach out there, especially if you're a coach in a club by yourself and you're quite far removed from other coaches. So we can be that supporter of you, even if that is your circumstance. So the other side to it is if you could give us some ideas about how we can help you. Like, that's just a few ideas, and hopefully you'd be into that. So if every single person that's on this webinar could give us something that you would like as a follow-on, or you can do multiple things that you like as a follow-on to this, how we can help you, that would be great. And Alan will just take a list of what each person wants, and we'll pull together something that we can do to really try and let this just be the start of the journey, not the end. And obviously we've got a bit of time for some questions. If anyone has any specific questions or general questions that you want answered right now.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful, Paul. So apologies I'm certainly aware of one person who maybe couldn't access the chat function. So we'll look into that to see if it's an issue on our end. But an opportunity for those of you that maybe couldn't access that chat function, or anybody else to jump on the microphone, and if you've got questions, go for it. In the meantime, one bit just quickly while you're doing that for us, just something new that we used internally, and it's just a quick way rather than feedback forms and things. It's just a good way for us to get some quick feedback. We've used it, so if you could jump on to menti.com at some point, which the link's just in the chat, you then pop in a code, which our code for this one is 221922, and all that it asks is like for a couple of words of how you would describe the workshop. So it might be informative, helpful, for example, and it just allows us to pull a bit of an image quickly together to understand how that's worked. So if anyone's got time to do that, that'd be greatly appreciated. Something a bit different as well for us as well that we're going to try. But yeah, any questions, feel free to use the chat again or jump in the microphone this time for the last web.
The review bit seems to have hit home with people. I can see the questions now.
I shouldn't need to look at 2 secs, maybe it's the wrong.
So just by Alan's
fixing this,
we can just open up to any general questions if anybody has any or observations. Hope everything might have been answered during that, or you might have fallen asleep. But either way, we've got a few more minutes that we can really focus in on this stuff if anyone's interested.
That should be the correct link now, and the code again remains the same. Are you seeing those questions, Paul? Or you just got to pick them off it if they're appropriate?
Yeah. So there's one from David Myers. Any coaches have any good ideas to get kids coached in this period? What worked well, if anything, specifically work with rackets, etc.? I mean, it would be good. It would be good if anyone out there has got some good any ideas for David. I think obviously I don't really do much with juniors now, certainly not individually. I've seen quite a few good ideas just about having those weekly challenges that people have put up and things. A lot of the kids have been quite creative in setting up things in their back gardens in terms of so they're able to continue hitting and doing stuff. But if anyone's got anything further that might be useful for David, I'm sure that would be great. Keith, how much of this workshop today will find its way onto future courses? Alan?
Yeah, really good point, Keith. We're hopefully we've managed to record this. Fingers crossed, it saves at the end of things, and it's something that we can reflect on. But it's making sure that I guess they link at appropriate times, and maybe some of the content that we cover today isn't always about being placed just in a coaching course and covering typical stuff. But we hope to run, I guess, more sessions off this, and Paul's always willing to. I guess Paul, as you say, often connect with coaches and just have these kind of informal conversations. To try and help. So yeah, really good point.
Yeah, I would Kevin said about to David, squash skills have some good stuff on there, and they have done a really good job during this time. Squash skills, and also I'm not sure whether you've seen the resources that we put out, but the school squash resource has got some great things. I think Kevin's on this chat. We've got a few little follow along workout videos that we've pulled together for kids to do at home, which seems to have gone down really well. And the whole school squash resource has got lots of different games that you can do and different activities for juniors to have a go at. And I'm sure they're all friendly enough and you can do them at home, no problem from what I've seen. So that would certainly be something to have a look at. Kevin's just beat me to it. Stuart, I've been encouraging my players to use this time to work on other aspects of their game, flexibility, or work on a lot of prehab exercise as no one is playing squash and get ahead in other areas. Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are little things that you can do, and I've actually really found a lot of the players have found it really useful to work on some technical stuff because they haven't got the distraction of where the ball's gone. And if they're just hitting against a wall, they can focus in on kind of wrist control and racket face and things like that. But the optimum opportunity here is really the stuff that you know is important in the game, but you might get distracted a little bit when you're actually able to train on a squash court and get focused in on the technical, tactical. So the flexibility stuff, the prehab stuff, the fitness stuff, the wellness, well-being, all the organization skills, planning, and all of that stuff that maybe people don't do. The reflection, that is a really key aspect to what the good players do. And trying to encourage younger players to start doing some reflections on their own game is great, as well as kind of psychological stuff. We've been really lucky to have access to that during this time, and it's definitely helped. So yeah, looking at all those other areas is great. Apparently Mark Beaumont's been putting stuff out.
I think Mark's one of the ones that was struggling to use the chat. So
yeah, I can talk to you just now, but I can't access the chat. Yeah, I've been putting some stuff out, and also asked the kids. We're doing a regional competition, giving them some vouchers for those who come up with the best creative ideas or best skills. So that's just trying to keep them coming up and thinking of different things they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great time to try and be creative and challenge your own creativity and come up with stuff that you never have had to do before. Like Mark sent me a really good video of something that him and James had developed in the back garden, which so many benefits for your future squash, but not really anything to do, or didn't look anything like a normal squash session that you'd see anywhere else. So here's your opportunity to be creative for sure.
I think one thing it's taught me is on the very simplistic exercises that there's far more variations that you can come up with if you just have a spend the actual time to do it. Whereas sometimes we go through the same sort of things again, and just being forced to have that time has made us come up with different things, which we'll add into coaching sessions. It's obviously not all in the back garden, but other things that we can do on court.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really great to see what different people and different coaches and players have come up with during this time, and I just hope that they stick with it once squash courts get opened up again and we don't drift back into the old habits of just doing the simple stuff that you've always done. This is hopefully a great moment for everyone to become a bit more of a creative coach. Julie has just put on a point about kind of that a lot of coach development focus on progressing to elite performance levels, and do we do anything for developing as a coach for children? We will put out some stuff. I think like most of these principles, and I guess it generally goes that way, that we focus in on elite performance level examples during these types of workshops, because that's what a lot of people are interested in, and that's quite usually relatable to the people that are delivering it. But certainly a lot of the things that we've spoken about are exactly the same when it comes to working with juniors and working with more developmental players. But we're doing a bit about club coaching, and so that's coming up, and we can, if there's demand there, then we can certainly do something around just that, the more developmental level coaching, and some ideas around that. We'd be keen to do that. We've got a couple of questions. How does the pandemic affect players' periodization, and what is the best way to handle it? I mean, it's a really difficult one, and hopefully you might be able to tell me the answer for this one. Like everyone's gone about this period very differently. And I think that's across the world here, and a lot of the top players have come out and tried to give interviews and stuff about what they've been doing. And everyone's going at it in a different way. So I think because we don't know when we're going to start things up again, it's really difficult to do any sort of periodization work. For anyone that is wanting to continue training, we're just focusing on the pre-season stuff, and really getting them to develop in the physical areas that they can. But we've left it very much down to the individual as to whether they have chosen to continue training or not, and what level of training they're continuing to do. And we're just there as a coaching team to try and support them maximize the decisions that they've made. So we're just linking them up to try and give them as much as we can based upon the decisions that they've made. We're not forcing them into anything right now, because we certainly don't want to be accountable for making the wrong decisions when we have zero information available as to what's going to happen in the future right now. So we're being completely led by the players, and then we're just supporting them in the decisions that they make from that. We're kind of getting to 4 o'clock now. Alan, is there anything, or we've just gone past 4 o'clock?
Don't think so, unless there's any final questions there. Obviously, we're running like a series of these. So next Thursday's one at the same time is focusing on the business of coaching, which is going to be delivered by or led by Hadrian Stiff, who is the director and founder of Elite Squash, that's based in, where about in England, Paul, is it?
He's in Bristol, but he's got different, it's turned into a big business now. He's probably he's leading the way in terms of the business of squash and what he's managing to achieve with what he started a number of years ago, from just being an everyday coach in a normal club. And when you see what he's managed to achieve now, it's pretty phenomenal. So anyone that is in that boat, a self-employed coach, who has aspirations to grow their business, definitely one not to be missed.
Yeah, so that's next Thursday. But I guess in the meantime, as always, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out and drop us a note. We're happy to pick up those conversations. Thanks to those that jumped on that link and added some words, just I guess so people can get a flavour for how this works. I'll just try and finish by sharing my screen with those words so people can see how it works, hopefully. Yeah, brilliant. So if anyone else still has a couple of minutes, just follow that link, pop in the code. We'd greatly appreciate some feedback. It's good to see what comes out of it. Apart from that, I think if that's everyone, Paul, I think we'll...
Yeah, brilliant. I think that we'll take a look at some of the comments and just see what people would be interested in moving forward with. And then we will set up something to really try and support the people that want to continue progressing off of the back of this. But thanks very much to everyone for coming and taking part.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And in the meantime, just reach out if we can help, as we say, and keep safe. Hopefully see some of you all soon. Thanks.